Welcome back to Realty TV right here on Rogers Television. So folks, we're talking about your small business. We've got Peter Jarvis and Timothy Brown joining us, and we're just talking about staging your business, and Tim had some pretty good ideas for us. But Peter, let's talk about staging our business from your standpoint. I mean, it sounds kind of funny for, my accountant staged my business.
Okay, the financial results are what's going to determine the value of the company. So if you plan on selling your business in a year or two, you would take steps to maximize your earnings in that period. Now, of course, everybody wants to make their earnings as high as possible, but there are certain things or expenditures that you can avoid because they have a longer term effect. So you wouldn't do things like move your location because there's downtime with that, and it would have a good long-term effect, but if we're looking to sell in 2 years, we want to cut back on things like that. We would look at not hiring new sales staff if there's a ramp-up time for them to actually have successes. Right. We wouldn't want to change management. We wouldn't want to make expenditures in R&D. Wouldn't want to heavily advertise if your lead or the effectiveness of your advertising isn't instant. So things like that. The expenses that you have going through your business, if you can lessen them and possibly increase revenue, you would get higher results. And
So basically, I would imagine you want to keep on to the short-term expenses. In other words, the things that you get instant results from, not that long process thinking, okay, well, this is going to work for the next 2-3 years.
Yes. And those are unnatural for a small business, an entrepreneur. In large corporations, there's a big pressure every quarter to maximize your earnings for reporting because the stock price is everything and they want to get their earnings really high in that quarter. The normal entrepreneur has a longer range thinking to business and will do anything that will result in him maximizing his profitability over a longer term.
Right.
You have to think a bit different about that in this circumstance.
Okay. Now, again, back to the staging. Now, how about talking about how many years of tax returns or statements, for that matter, should a small business have to make it viable? In other words, there's got to be a track record that people need to see.
Yes, they look at 3 to 5 years. For sure, in determining what the value of the company is. Having said that, though, the last year gets much more attention than the others.
Okay. So hopefully there's been a nice increase, a steady increase in, obviously, profitability and sales, because you don't want to be showing that it's on a downturn in the marketplace.
No. Year over year, improvement, growth, that gets you into the higher multiples that was spoken about earlier. So if you show increased value from year to year, that means you're going to sell it for a much higher multiplier. By multiplier, I mean the number of earnings of the corporation. So a successful growing company is worth 5 times, one that's diminishing, like you talked about, maybe only 1 time's earnings. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, Timothy, when we look at businesses in general, okay, I would imagine that there's got to be some businesses that are easier to put together on paper than others.
Absolutely.
I'm sure there's viewers out there where they have the small convenience stores, small restaurants. I mean, these must be the tougher ones, would they be? Or, obviously selling a franchise, they're a little bit easier. What do you think?
The nature of the business will dictate the complexity of the appraisal and the complexity of the selling of the business. And the more complex the business is, or more sophisticated the service or product offering is, the higher the barrier of entry to that business will be. So in other words, if you're in a highly specialized business and there's not a lot of people doing it, you don't have a large pool of buyers.
Right.
So that's tougher to find a buyer. It'll take longer to sell the business, and it may sell, as Peter says, for one of the lower multiples.
Right.
For a general business with a low barrier of entry, such as owning a restaurant,
right.
Other than a license to under the Restaurant Act, I'm sorry, I forget what it is,
right.
For cleanliness, anyone can cook. And anyone can run or buy a restaurant.
But there's a good indication. Let's say you have a really nice restaurant, but it's renowned for the chef, and the chef's the owner, and the chef plans on leaving. I mean, that's got to be a variable that people have to think about.
Key employees. It's essential in a lot of businesses, and I'll let Peter speak to that topic just a second. A key employee is paramount to the ongoing success of a business, such as a chef, and in many cases, that employee has been offered the business. But many times they will not buy it. They don't have the financing. They don't have the stomach for the risk and for ownership. They're good at what they do, but they don't want to be a business owner. And in many instances, an offer to purchase is sometimes conditional that key employee stay with the business so the new owner can enjoy their years of experience.
Yeah. There's a big problem in business. Sometimes the business doesn't have any value outside of the principal.
Right.
So if the principal does everything and the business, if he left the building, the business would follow him, then there's nothing there to sell. So you talked about getting your business ready for sale. That would be a longer term goal. You'd want to be able to have the business survive without you being there.
Right. So
that's the only way it has value.
That's that delegation of the business, stepping back and letting somebody run it to make it a viable business. Yeah. So that's that passive income that I think a lot of people are looking for. I would imagine, when people look at, especially when you do financials, you say, okay, well, how many hours are you putting into this business? There's people that could be putting in the 80-hour work weeks. Maybe they're only making, $50,000 from an 80-hour work week, and they're saying, why am I doing this? And there's no passive income coming from the business.
Yeah, it's when you're selling a business, you're only selling the value that remains with you not being involved in it. And most people will sign a 2 or 5 year employment contract to hang in to make sure ownership passes. So there's still an ability after sale to take some of the goodwill that attaches to the individual and export it to the new owner. But it's important to have your business set up so that you are somewhat removed from it.
Okay, perfect. We're going to go to another quick break, but folks, stay with us. We are talking more about selling your own small business, or buying it for that matter. So we've got more right after this.